This is another project working on this Wight Potter. I'm going to replace the stern cleats, which when the boat was made and first outfitted, they put on a pair of very small cleats. And once again, I'm not going to be able to get to the back side of the bolts. So I've come up with a plan and we'll just see whether it works. This is the cleat that the boat came with. It's the original Holt Allen cleat. This is something I got on Amazon, and that's what my customer wants. Something big enough so you can actually tie a real line to it. I got the cross section of this part here and made a pair of backer blocks, which will go on the inside. And then there will be some U-bolts made out of this 5/16 all thread. And the cleat was originally designed for flathead bolts to go in here. And instead what we're going to have is the all thread's going to come up from underneath and there will be a nut on top. And I'm going to try and make it look good and like I did it on purpose. Okay, I got the first hole drilled and I'm set up over this position. What I did is pegged the first bolt down through its hole and then fiddled around here and moved it back and forth and wiggled it and moved the clamps until I'm quite satisfied that the spindle is right over where I want it. So I'm going to take this out, drill the hole, okay, that's pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to mark this with tape and write all over this thing, because even though the cleats and the wood and everything should be symmetrical and interchangeable, from this point forward there's really no point in running that risk. So I'm going to mark it and, well, like this one here. This is the first one. And it's marked front port, bottom, front port. Okay, the wood's all drilled. Now I'm going to countersink the top. Now I've set up on this the same way I did before. I loosened everything up, put the drill in, made sure it was centered on the existing hole. Take it out, and this, I don't know whether it'll focus on that. Anyway, this is a Forstner bit. It's 18 millimeters, which is an odd size. I've never had one before, and it's odd for me anyway. But it was just a little bit larger than the washer. Okay, now all we have to do is figure out how deep to go. There's a washer, there's the nut. Okay, this will take a little while. There, on the quill for a drill press, there's usually a stop mechanism. You don't want to go too deep usually. Okay. I think that looks good. That's this is a locking nut, one of these nylon locking nuts, and just the rounded part sticking up. Here we are at the starboard cleat, and I guess we're committed. Okay. All right. Now the plan is to reuse the hole in the back. And so I will position over it, and I'm not going to worry too much about angles because it's not a very, doesn't go through a lot of material. Okay, now front starboard, to drop the bolt, and these aren't the bolts we're going to use, but these will work for right now. And it's a lot of fiberglass, so that's good. Okay, and then to position it here, I'm just going to hold it. Okay, and that's how it'll look. After a fair amount of thought, I decided I needed two pieces, 15.5 inches long. Okay, now the next step after this is to grind a flat area, maybe 1/2 inch long, so I can drill into it and get a hole in the end. Okay, on to the next step. drilling a hole in each end. Next time, I've got a piece of wire around this tapered surface. This is a peavey used for moving logs, and but I'm going to heat it up from here to about here, hold it with some welding gloves, and bend it around and try and make a nice U shape. And if I get it to this dimension here, it'll just fit up through the backer block and the cleat. Okay, well, that worked better than the first time. The first time I tried, I didn't heat up as long a section. I used propane, and this time I used MAP gas and went further out. And then the other thing is I left these on the wood stove until they turned kind of a chocolate brown, just sitting on top of the wood stove. That's 300 or 400 degrees, I think. So, and then I added these connector nuts and extension. There is the U-bolt, 2 nuts on the inside plus a thick washer. There'll be a 1/4 inch of deck in here, and then the cleat like that. I've got tied to the ends of the U-bolt through the holes 2 pieces of string. The green is for the forward one. Not that that'll make any difference, because once I set it inside the hull and start pulling it, it'll either come through or it won't. There's, just to make things interesting, there's an electrical outlet back in that corner. And so once the caulking compound is warmed up, I forgot it and left it in the freezer until a few minutes ago. And then we'll have these lines back here to pull that through and under the deck, through that area where, well, no man can go. As I said earlier on a project, maybe a small child. Anyway, well, I was just about to give up. I went back and forth, and then I placed the cleat, or the assembly, the one that was like this, with the caulk bedding compound on it, on a broom, and slid the broom towards the back And then every foot or so I'd scramble up and out and tighten up these two cords because I didn't want them to get tangled too much. And then after I did that about 6 times, I was pulling and it seemed to be hung up, and then suddenly it wasn't. So I was about ready to give up, and then first the knots showed up and then the bolts. So here we are. We'll get on to the next phase. I don't know whether it'll show up in the picture. Can you see the caulk? There's a little thing of caulk coming up through the old bolt hole. That's fine. Okay, now this is the port cleat front. There it is. 3M adhesive sealant fast cure 4000 UV. Oh, I've been calling it UV 4000. That sounds more science fiction-y to me. Anyway, we'll pump a little of this in here. Anyway, well, this is great. We're on to the next step. I was afraid I was going to have to back up and start over. Okay, there's this coming down. Oh. Well, we'll get more of that later. Okay, one washer, and then a lock nut, nylock lock nut. And this is where it's nice to have spent the time I did getting it so that these threaded rod, even though I ground away almost all of it, it would still take a bolt, or take a nut. Now here is, see whether, there. Okay, you can see there the flats that I ground on. And that'll take a wrench like this, because, I thought I could use box end, and I thought, no, I can't use box end. And then I thought, oh, I can get some of those fancy wrenches where the bolt can go out the top. And I thought, no, I can't do that either. So this is what I came up with. And do this just for a little bit. Oh. Okay, those are on. Don't have to worry about the U-bolts sinking away, although I do worry about it. But I think it'll be all right. Okay, those are down. And now let's get the bolts tight. Because the U-bolt did drop down. It dropped back into the hull just then. Oh, okay, and just then we got a big spurt of stuff coming up through the old bolt hole. So that means the whole backer block has come up into contact. I think that's going to do it. That one's still... Well, that's about finished. I cut those off with the grinding wheel and then rounded over and flattened the top with the file. And that just about finishes up the work I wanted to do this winter on this boat. I started off with the motor mount, and I did another video on that. And then the mast system, or the mast support, that was my son's idea for a design. And the nice thing about it is it flattens down, so you can just store it anywhere. A small project was changing the angle of the oarlocks. This is where you can see the angle. That's a piece of Trex that was cut off at a couple of different angles and then bolted back on. And then added the locator posts for the trailer to make it easier to get it on center. This is another project, too small to be part of a subject for a video, but I made a model. My daughter had complained that it was hard to get the bottom of the mast onto its foot. And so I came up with this idea, made a plywood and cardboard model, and then took it to a welder, and he made it out of stainless steel. This is the second time I've made what I thought was a pretty good model and then get it back, and there's something slightly wrong with it, and I realized that I'd made the model slightly wrong. It's a little bit tilted. It got tilted forward when the glue dried. But anyway, that's why that piece under it is tilted also. But it helps to have it up in the air a little bit more. And then the only other thing was the front mast support, which I copied from another guy on YouTube.